What's up, guys? It's Sage from No Contest Wrestling. Today I'm chopping up with Ethan HD from DEFY Wrestling. Let's get into it.
Who is Ethan HD?
Ethan HD is one half of the Amerikan Gunz tag team. We are the tag team of the Pacific Northwest. We've been all over the West Coast. We've wrestled Lucha Bros, Mexi Blood, Mustache Mountain. Anybody who's come through the Northwest as a tag team has probably at some point had to face us. We've headlined shows against LAX, Grizzled Young Veterans. I mean, really, you name it, like we have gone up against them.
So what made you want to be a wrestler?
I think it's just something that I became obsessed with. It is, in my opinion, the ultimate performance art. There's no second takes. It is, it's choreographed, and at the same time, it's absolute improv. It is, you have to be an athlete. You have to be an elite level athlete if you want to do this. And on top of that, have to have the skill set of an actual stage performer. There are so many things that are like wrestling, but wrestling is like nothing else in this world. And I think to be good at wrestling is to say I have dominated not just my craft, but all the other crafts that follow with, that I could hang with people on stage, whether it's stand-up comedy, whether it's acting. I can hang with, the most elite athletes in the gym, whether it's lifting or it's conditioning, just to be able to say, as a wrestler, there is little on this planet that I cannot do when it comes to entertainment and athleticism. And the first wrestling match I saw was the New Age Outlaws versus Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie in a cage. And it's maybe 4 minutes long of a match, like a Monday Night Raw. But DX runs in and they're hitting him with trash cans. It was so insane and nothing else I'd ever seen. And it was all real, tangible people doing it. And so I just got obsessed with it. And then when I was in high school, I fell into indie wrestling and saw the Amazing Red and Brian XL, and that whole New York, New Jersey scene of guys like Homicide, Low Key. And I was like, oh, fuck, they're tiny. I was like, I'm 5'7". I was like, they can't be much bigger. I was like, I could do this. And then, found a wrestling school and started training there. And the dude was an absolute hack, had just no business, running a wrestling school. But he got on an episode of Velocity as a job guy. And so that was his credentials or whatever. And so he ended up getting outed from the school and Davey Richards took over and then just squatted us to death and beat the shit out of us and made us real wrestlers.
What kind of opportunities has wrestling provided you with?
Oh God, so many. I've gotten to do commercials because of it. I've gotten to travel overseas. I ended up going to India for 6 months and coaching the Great Khali's wrestling school out there. I went out to New Zealand 3 months and trained people at Bad Luck Fale's dojo. I was the first Gaijin trainer to head a New Japan sanctioned dojo. And just all things that came from wrestling. Even my comic book shop that I own, a lot of being able to take that over was because of the fact that I had such a buzz about me that we made the front page of the news saying professional wrestler wants to save this local comic book store. And we ended up on the radio, we were on the news and the paper, and it was all because I was a wrestler. I'm not just some dude who's buying a comic book store. I'm a professional wrestler that's buying a comic book store. And you don't hear about that every day. And I think people just want to see how those two worlds clash and how that makes sense.
Can you tell me a little bit about who the Amerikan Gunz is?
We're just aggressive. We're just ridiculously, some people will say overly aggressive, but I don't even think we're overly aggressive. I think we're as aggressive as we need to be. I'm 5'8", Mike's 5'6". We're not the biggest guys. We're not the strongest guys, but we're the meanest guys. We will headbutt you in the bridge of the nose. The Amerikan Gunz are relentless. We win by any means necessary. We are the run the jewels of professional wrestling.
What would you consider your favorite Amerikan Gunz match?
My personal favorite match is the match we had against the Grizzled Young Veterans, because we had both heard a lot about each other at the time, and they were the tag team in Progress, and we were the tag team in DEFY. And I think there was a genuine interest when that match got announced from wrestling fans over who was the better tag team. And it was this clash of two promotions. It's the clash of two countries. It's America and the UK going head to head, and we're both these big heel tag teams. And so I think there was just a lot of curiosity of who's the crowd going to side with? Because we're all dicks, who's going to come out on top? We're all cheaters. And so I think to me, that was my favorite match because A, there was so much writing on it, and B, there was so much interest in it. And also they're just an amazing tag team. Like, I feel like everything people say about the Revival, the Grizzled Young Veterans actually are.
You mentioned DEFY. Can you tell us what DEFY is?
Yeah, DEFY is the premier wrestling company of the Northwest. They're primarily based out of Seattle, but obviously they run shows in Portland, Spokane, kind of all over. But Seattle is their big home base. And they just bring in talent from all over the world. And they put the spotlight on talent that maybe people didn't have an eye on before. Brody King started doing DEFY and then ended up obviously going to Ring of Honor, to New Japan, things like that. Shane Strickland was another person who, came to DEFY, and his star skyrocketed because of that. He was headlining against guys he wouldn't necessarily get to headline against on the East Coast. He was going out there and facing guys like Brody King. He was facing guys like MVP, and so I think DEFY has a lot of top indie guys you see other places, but because they're on the West Coast, they're able to offer matches that maybe you wouldn't see if guys were primarily in one area. And, they obviously had opportunities to work with companies like Progress. They work with companies like New Japan. Like, people joke about like the forbidden door that AEW's opened, but I think DEFY was kind of doing that even before then. We had like a match with Mustache Mountain that at the time they were NXT contracted athletes. So they couldn't even show this match on their streaming service. It was just for the live crowd. They've had like the NXT championship defended at a DEFY show when Pete Dunne was NXT champion. And so we've had, AEW and New Japan guys face off. They had Joey Janela and Tama Tonga wrestle each other while they're both contracted to New Japan and AEW. So I think DEFY is the forbidden door, or was the OGs that opened the forbidden door, and now AEW is just doing it on a bigger scale.
You mentioned Tama Tonga, so you had a match with him. Can you tell us a little bit about the build-up going to that match?
I think it was very interesting because I think, again, we're very parallel. We're primarily tag team guys where we're from, and we're both just kind of mean brown dudes. We did have the tie through Fale. Obviously, Tom and Fale have their ties, and then I had my tie through Fale working at his dojo. I just remember people going like, these guys are going to beat the shit out of each other. And we absolutely were. And I was all in. Like, I was prepared to like swing if it came to that. There was a point in the crowd where he threw me into the drink stand, and I was like, it. And I just took a drink and I spit it in his face. We started off just throwing hands, slapping each other. But it was one of those things like, man, if it comes to blows, it comes to blows. But like, if you just want to lay it in, bro, like, we can lay it in. And yeah, it's probably one of the most hard hitting matches I've had.
So would you say that's a must-see match on your end? I
think so. I think if there's two matches you want to see what I'm like as a singles guy, I think me and Tama Tonga at DEFY, if you just want to see two dudes beat the shit out of each other. And then if you just want to see what I do as like, I guess more of a wrestler, the bell-to-bell wrestler, me and Artemis Spencer, we headlined DEFY's show. We went on after Ultimo Dragon and Matt Cross. So that's where the bar is. And I feel like we raised the bar. We topped everything those people saw that night. So I would say those are probably two matches that sum me up as like as a singles guy.
How do you feel being a staple of DEFY?
I'm proud to be a flag bearer for DEFY. And I definitely carry that with like a lot of responsibility. I think when I'm going to other places and wrestling and people know like, oh, he's a DEFY guy, because they know that like DEFY only books the best of the best. There's no, oh, he's a nice guy, so we're going to book him, or like, oh, he helps with the ring, so we're going to put him on. There's none of that. Either you're really good and you wrestle for DEFY, or you suck and you don't wrestle for DEFY. And so when I go other places, I know that like I have to deliver like a DEFY level performance everywhere else I go. So if I'm going like to Eastern Washington, if I'm going to Cali, if I'm going out east, if I'm going to India, I have to show them like I wrestle for the best American company, in my opinion, and the opinion of others. And that if you put me on your show, you're booking one of the best wrestlers. You're going to get that level of performance out of me every single time. So I wear that shit like a badge.
What's the one thing that stands out to you about DEFY? Or is a big reason fans even come to check out a DEFY show?
I think it's because the DEFY crowd by default there's an atmosphere to it. And when you're a part of it, you feel it. There is a buzz and a kind of energy, like from the moment everybody settles into their seats, There's always that buzz. There's no quiet moments at DEFY shows. I think also DEFY doesn't try to be like everybody else. And I think that's the other big thing is DEFY is not trying to book the same indie matches that everyone else is booking. They're not trying to be the next PWG. They're not trying to be the next Progress. You know, they're very much doing their own thing. And their goal every time they go out is to deliver a better show than they did the week before or the month before. You know, every anniversary show has to top the last one. Every show has to top the show that came before it. And I love that they put that kind of pressure and that they, in a weird way, inadvertently put that kind of pressure on the performers. I also think because DEFY is still new, there's still a lot of proving ground. DEFY isn't in a position they can have a bad show. They can't have like an off night. And so I think that's the other thing too that sets them apart is there's still that like we live or die by every show. Whereas maybe a company that's been around 10 years can have a bad show here or there. Or like, oh, we're just gonna put some filler stuff on. We're just trying to get to 2 months down the road where we bring in this big name. DEFY every time does something to shock the fans. DEFY brought in the Lucha Bros without announcing it, just to let people know that like, even though this show is stacked, we'll still bring people in. It's not just about, we're going to use these names to like pop the crowd or whatever, but it's that we're here to shock the shit out of you every show. Expect the unexpected. And so I think that's what sets DEFY apart. I don't know any other indie that would book the Lucha Bros and not announce it ahead of time. And I think DEFY does that kind of shit. And that's what I love about it.
What's some notable talent that you feel people should know that DEFY has like had?
I think the MVP of DEFY as a singles performer is Cody Shaw. I think that dude is absolutely the future of professional wrestling in every sense. He recently had a match on AEW Dark, and the Cambodian press blew up, and because there's just no Cambodian wrestlers, and so it was this huge deal. And like now, all his YouTube videos have like tens of thousands of views. But also, he just goes out there and crushes it every single time. And he's low key like having these bangers with guys like Christopher Daniels. And he's going out there and wrestling like Darby Allin and Jake Atlas. And just like having these really competitive matches. And he's getting over. And he's not just over because he's a good wrestler. There's that weird intangible that some people just have where people just, they like them. I don't know why I like him, but I like him. And he has that quality. And you can't teach that. You can't book that, somebody in that position. So I think absolutely Cody Shun is the guy to watch out for. And I guarantee you in like 2 or 3 years, like he is going to be like a name in wrestling.
Do you have like a match recommendation for anyone who wants to check him out on DEFY?
Ooh, I'm trying to think what DEFY has on YouTube that's like readily available. It's all on their streaming site, DEFY On Demand. His match with Jake Atlas is one of my favorites. I have never seen a crowd want somebody to win so bad as people that crowd did for Cody Shun that night. Like you could feel them like willing him to win like every near fall. It wasn't just 1, 2, and oh for the sake of oh. There was like a need to hear that 3 count. And there wasn't just like the oh, because like, oh, he kicked out, but it was like, oh no, like we're not there yet. I think that's the match people need to see. Because I mean, it's a great match, but everybody has a great match with Jake Atlas. I think it's impossible not to. But to get that kind of a reaction when you're going up against a guy who's literally going to NXT in 2 weeks, and everybody knows Jake Atlas is going to NXT, and the crowd's not there to wish Jake Atlas goodbye. The crowd is there to will Cody Shun to win. So I would say that's the match to check out.
So aside from that match, what are some of your personal favorite matches? And what's a match that you think fans should check out on YouTube in general?
In general, ooh, I really love the Regal Benoit Brian Pillman Memorial Show match. I think there's an absolute grittiness to it. And the fact that this happened in like the 90s, but there is an absolute grittiness to it that even if somebody wasn't a wrestling fan, they'd be like, yo, like these guys are just beating the shit out of each other. Like this is like a competitive fight. Like even if you were one of those, oh, wrestling that fake shit, there's no way you could have that feeling towards this performance. Also the fact it happened in like the mid 90s. And today, guys are still chasing that kind of a performance and that kind of a match where it just feels like two bulls just literally cracking heads. The fact that people are still trying to have that match now, I think says volumes about it. And so I would say that's definitely one people should check out. That contest is so just intense. So I think that, yeah, I would say that's the one.
What about DEFY? What's the go-to match for DEFY?
Go-to match at DEFY. I mean, obviously, Cody shunning Jake Atlas. I would say Amerikan Gunz versus LAX. I know that one's readily available on YouTube to check out. Shane Strickland, Brody King, their second match. Shane Strickland and Matt Riddle is another really good one to check out as well. Nicole Matthews and Taya Valkyrie, I think, is a really great match and a lot of fun to watch. Nicole Matthews and Kimberly as well from DEFY is another really good one. But off the top of my head, I would say those would be the ones to check out for sure.
Okay, so to tie everything up, we broke down what is DEFY, who you are, but why should fans care about it?
I mean, I guess the biggest reason is I'm as authentic and real as you're going to get in professional wrestling. I think there's a lot of people who can relate to me. I'm this kid who grew up in the hood in Lakewood, raised by a single mother, and literally everything you see me do, I fought for. We didn't have money to play sports. So I ran outside. I did push-ups. I did sit-ups. I did all of these things with zero equipment to make myself an athlete. And if you can't relate to somebody who has fought and scratched and clawed for every single thing that they have, I don't know what to tell you. Also, I don't apologize for who I am. You can go on my Twitter account and see that I'm not afraid to call people out on their shit. If I believe in something wholeheartedly, you're going to hear about it. I refuse to let you down. As a performer, I try my hardest not to let people down as a person as well.
Is there anything you want to pitch on your end or sell?
Nothing huge, I guess. Obviously, if people want to support me in a non-wrestling way, they can always go to Destiny City Comics. Like Instagram, Facebook has a ton of comic book stuff. So if you're into that kind of thing, you can always order that stuff directly from me. I pack it myself. I do everything myself because that's just the way I was raised. And yeah, you can support a wrestler doing their best to have a kind of, a safety net for when wrestling is over, so that I'm not, one of those weird dudes just hanging out at shows and selling bootleg lucha masks and Ring of Honor DVDs from 15 years ago and all that fun carny shit.